Hello, economics students, and welcome to a new semester and welcome to a class that you've never taken before, and that, of course, is economics. So I figured that the best way to get started with this study of a new subject is to determine what exactly this economic subject is all about. So let's think about this. If someone were to ask you, what is economics? How would you answer that today? Well, if you think about it, some people may answer it with a statement like it's the study of money, perhaps. And although that might be a reasonable explanation of what economics is, it's not the correct answer. Money actually is a tool of economics, but money itself is not economics. Some of you may be familiar with a term called supply and demand. It's the study of supply and demand, you might say. We're going to get into supply and demand quite a bit in this semester, but supply and demand is not economics. It is a tool of economics. It's a model that can predict economic activity, but it is not in and of itself economics. So let's look at what the definition of economics actually is. Now, you may find other definitions of economics out there in the internet world and in various textbooks. But the definition that I want to use, that I think is the best definition of economics, is this one. Economics is a social science that studies how people, individually or in groups, use scarce resources to satisfy their needs and wants. This is a definition that you will need to know, all right? You will see this again in your life. But let's break this definition down a little bit and see what it actually means, okay? So first of all, economics is a social science. That word social deals with human behavior, okay? When we talk about the social sciences, we're talking about different elements of human behavior, human activity. You may be able to come up with other social sciences besides economics. We teach several of them at Rockford Lutheran High School. So another social science, for example, would be sociology. Okay, sociology dealing with how different groups of people interact with one another in various capacities. Psychology is another social science dealing with how the mind influences how a person behaves. There are others, anthropology, even history is a social science that deals with the record of human behavior in the past. So just like these other social sciences, economics is also a social science that deals with a particular type of human behavior. And it's called a social science. That word science is important as well, because it is a study that uses the scientific method. A social science, to be a true social science, must use the scientific method. Just like in the study of biology or the study of chemistry, all of these different sciences use the scientific method, where you define a question or a purpose, you formulate a hypothesis, you test the hypothesis, you analyze the results, and you make modifications if necessary, or you report the findings if your experiments and tests validate the hypothesis. Economics does that as well. It's a social science, and it studies how people individually or in groups use their resources to satisfy needs and wants. Now, there are two big schools of economics, and you're going to want to write these down. I have two words there, individually or groups. When we study the economics of individuals, we're looking at individual behavior, and that would be an individual human being, or it could also be an individual business enterprise. When we study the individual economic behavior, we are talking about microeconomics, M-I-C-R-O, microeconomics. That's looking at individual behavior, individual human beings, or individual business enterprises. Or we might look at group behavior. And when we're looking at the behavior, the economic behavior of large groups, that would be macroeconomics, M-A-C-R-O economics. And when we're talking about macroeconomics, what we're really talking about here is the economic behavior of a country, a nation state. Or we may be looking at the economic behavior of an industry, like the telecommunications industry or the automobile industry or the oil industry. Looking at something in those big terms, that's macroeconomics. And then we're looking at how they use scarce resources. That word scarce or scarcity is absolutely key to economics. We're going to spend a lot of time dealing with this use of the word scarcity and scarce resources. In fact, we'll deal with that tomorrow in much greater detail than today. Just understand that our resources that we have, that we must use to live, are scarce. They are not unlimited. Okay? And then we use these scarce resources to satisfy our needs and wants. Okay, so a need is something that you have to have in order to live, in order to survive. So for example, you have to have food, you have to have water, you have to have shelter, you have to have clothing. Those are your needs. And then we also have wants, okay? Wants are things that make your life a little bit more enjoyable. You can live without them, but you want them because your life is better, more comfortable, more enjoyable with them. Okay, so I'll give you an example. Shelter is a need, but a mansion on Spring Creek Road is not a need. That is a want. Now, that mansion on Spring Creek provides you or satisfies your need, but it goes beyond that. It goes into the area of wants. You don't need a mansion in order to live. You just need shelter. Okay, so that's the difference. I don't need to take a vacation to Cozumel and go scuba diving, but I would like to. I want to. That makes my life more enjoyable. So that's the difference between needs and wants. So keep this definition in mind as we go through the semester. We're looking at how people use their scarce resources to satisfy their needs, to make their lives more enjoyable, more pleasant. Okay? And you can see in this picture below that we satisfy our needs and wants in different ways. The picture on the bottom left is a marketplace in Belize. Okay? The picture on the right is another type of marketplace, and that could be in any city in North America. That's actually a Myers store. Okay, both of these institutions that you're looking at, whether it's that market in Belize or the Myers grocery and clothing store, they sell a little bit of everything, those are doing the same thing. They're satisfying people's needs and wants, but they're doing it in a different way. And so that's a part of economics too. We're looking at how people satisfy those needs and wants. Now the next question is, well, what's the purpose? Why do we want to study this anyway? Is it going to make me any richer? Is it going to make me any happier to know how I'm going about doing it? Well, the answer to that question is actually yes. It will make your life a little bit better to understand how this stuff works. And more importantly, though, it will make other people's lives better. And who am I talking about here? Well, I'm talking about people like this, okay? This picture was taken almost certainly in sub-Saharan Africa. It was taken about 10, 12 years ago, okay, in a relatively poor part of the world. And I put this picture here to illustrate an important element about why the study of economics is so important. Oftentimes, if you think about sub-Saharan Africa at all, you think about it as a place that is probably not a pleasant place to live. In many ways, it is not. Sub-Saharan Africa is probably the poorest part of the world today. And you do see places like this where you see these small children who are lining up to get their food, okay, or perhaps water, clean drinking water. They have a hard life. But the thing is, what you see here, although it exists today, it doesn't exist to the same degree that it did, say, 30 or 40 or 50 years ago. It doesn't exist in the same degree that it did when I was in high school. And the reason it doesn't exist so much anymore is because of economics. Because the countries in that part of the world, most of them, many, or if not most of them, many of them, have actually done away with old economic systems which were not working well and which were causing people to live right on the brink of starvation, of famine. And they have done away with those old economic systems and replaced them with systems that meet their needs and wants much more efficiently, much better. And so what you see here, while it does exist today, it doesn't exist to the same degree that it once existed. Okay? The knowledge of how economic forces work have made sub-Saharan Africa, the poorest part of the world today, also the part of the world that is growing most rapidly in its wealth. Now they're starting from a low starting point, okay? But they are growing, many of those countries are growing very, very rapidly economically. So they're able now to feed and house their people much more efficiently than they could in the past. And so when you see things like you see in this picture, it makes the news not because it's the common, everyday life of everyone in that part of the world. It makes the news because it is in fact the exception. Okay, these are the ones that have not quite managed to pull themselves up, but with an understanding of economics, they just might be able to, or at least their governments will be able to make it so that these people will not be living on the brink of starvation as they are today. That's why we study economics. Unless you think this is only dealing with the third world, with undeveloped countries across on the other side of the globe, take a look at this picture too. Okay, this picture was taken about 3 to 4 miles as the bird flies from where you are sitting right now watching this video. This picture was taken in Rockford, Illinois, just a little bit on the west side of the river. And what you see here is actually a tent over here on the far left. You can see they've had a campfire over here, but this is not Rock Cut State Park. These people are not camping here for fun. This is a homeless camp, okay? Right here in Rockford. The person that lives in this tent has no home, okay? We study economics to help those people living in Africa. We study economics to try to help the people here in the United States of America, here in Rockford, Illinois, not far from where you are sitting, to help them raise themselves up as well, okay? Or to provide the institutions that will eliminate, or if not eliminate, at least make it much less likely that someone would ever find themselves homeless, having to live in a floodplain near the Rock River in a tent. That's why we study economics, to make everyone's lives better, whether they're on the other side of the globe or just a couple of miles from here. Okay, so let's take another look about 2 areas of economics. We've already looked at macro and microeconomics. Remember what those are. There is also something called positive and normative economics. Okay, positive economics is going to focus on facts and cause and effect relationships that use the scientific method. Okay, so positive economics is basically making predictions. Okay, based on what we know from the social science of economics, let's say we decide to make it so that there will be no homelessness in the United States. We can use economic principles to determine what the impact of that would be. Obviously, there will be an impact. If we want to eliminate homelessness, we have to pay for it somehow. Okay, so there's going to be some impact on taxes. Or if we don't pay for it, you're going to have what we call a budget deficit in the government. We're going to be spending money we don't have. So we can figure out using positive economics what the impact of that would be to eliminate homelessness. Then the question becomes, should we eliminate homelessness? And then we get into normative economics. Here we're making value judgments about which economic goals are desirable and then how best to achieve them. Is it desirable to eliminate homelessness in America? Okay, I can use positive economics and determine what the impact will be if we do that. And now I can use normative economics to decide whether or not that is a goal that we should strive for. Based on the consequences that I will be able to determine using positive economics, is it worth the cost? And that's where I get into normative economics. Should we eliminate homelessness? Should we make college free for all, 2-year or 4-year programs in colleges or universities? That's normative economics, okay? So with that, we're going to stop this video. I'm really looking forward to this semester. You're going to work hard. You're going to learn a lot. And I think with a little bit of luck, you're going to have some fun and enjoy what you're learning. So with that, I'm signing off. You guys have a great, great day. I believe you have a little homework assignment today. If you haven't seen it in Canvas already, be sure to check it. That's going to be due in a couple of days. We'll talk to you later.